Today we're going to do something that's kind of fun. We're going to hear my summing mixer set up. I got some tracks that from original song that I wrote, and we're going to put it through my summing mixer mixed with only plugins, and then we're going to put it through my console mixed with outboard gear. We'll sort of hear the difference. And if we have time and I feel up to it, I'll do it in the box print too, so we can hear the difference between my console, a summing mixer, and in the box mix. And I got some other ideas too. I just don't know how far I'm going to get with it. The tracks that you're hearing are from an original song that I wrote, typical rock song, and some of them are scratch, like it's just a rhythm section, drums, bass, and guitars. The bass is a scratch DI that I did, and some of the guitar tracks are scratch, some are not, some are keepers. But it's good enough to hear the difference between the console, the summing, and the summing mixer. And that's what we're going to do. So right now, I have the summing mixer set up, and I'm going to show you what's going on with that. So my console's not on, and none of my outboard gear is, except for the pieces I'm going to show you. So I'm coming out of the box. All right, I got a mix in Pro Tools with plugins. I'll go through those for you. I'm coming into my API summing mixer. So this is 16 channels, and it has a mix bus insert on it. On that insert, I have my Allen Smart C2 and my Alicia X filter. So I could bypass it by just hitting that, or I could have it engaged by hitting that. It has a mono check, a master fader. The mix bus insert is pre-fader, so adjusting them, it doesn't affect the sound when I'm doing automation in the box. All right, so I have also, so those are the only two outboard pieces I'm using, and it's on the mix bus, and they'll be the same ones on my console when we do that. I also have my drums, besides them being spread across this, I have an auxiliary drum bus in the box coming out, going into this API device that I had made, and this is either a mic preamp or line amps, like busing through a 1604 or vintage API console. What's inside these devices, both my API summing mixer and what I call the auxiliary device, is vintage 325 cards and transformers. They're completely transformered in and out, completely balanced. It's going through API op amps, API transformers, really cool stuff. It sounds, I really like the way it sounds. For a quick in the box mix, just to run it through something to get sort of that console sound, I love it. So this here, this piece, I could either have as mic preamps or line amps. And right now, my drum bus is going through this. And then I'm returning it to two channels of my summing mixer. So the mix that you're going to hear that's my summing mixer mix is all plugins that I'm using. And I'm not using too many, but I am using plugins mixed across this summing mixer. And then the drum bus coming out, hitting this, which is just more transformers and 325 cards, going into this. I don't have to use this. I just like it. Okay, so that's it. And besides that, again, I have a mix bus compressor and EQ. So let's go over the plugins that I'm using. And I'm going to do a screen recording for you so you could see it. So I'm going to start that now. All right. So what we got here is, let me solo the drums. These are all the drum tracks here. And on the kick drum right here, I have the SSL plugin, Channel Strip. I'm doing a little bit of EQ. Looks like I'm taking out some top end there. And these are all choices I made before a while ago. So I'm just going to stick with it and go with what I trusted before. So I have a gate engaged on the kick, and I am taking out some high end off the inside kick drum. And it looks like I'm not doing really anything on the mid, and then the low I'm also doing a little bit of reduction there. On the outside kick, you can see I have no plugins here. So inside kick, I got a SSL plugin. The outside kick, I have nothing. On the snare top, I have the SSL channel strip. I'm using a gate. I'm not doing any EQing. So I'm basically just using this for the gate. And am I filtering? No, I'm not. But I am doing some level control right here. I'm reducing the snare top by 3.2 dB. All right, and now the actual EQ that I'm using, this is a new EQ that I just got that I like a lot, is the Sound Toys SIE. It's a vintage Siemens replica EQ. And I have this on the snare top, and it's giving it some high end, some clarity. All right, so besides that, the snare bottom, I have nothing. So I do this a lot. I treat the inside kick, but not the outside kick. I treat the snare top, but I don't treat the snare bottom. And then I have two tom mics, which is, again, the SSL channel strip. I really like this plugin. Here's the two toms. Then the stereo overhead. I'm doing a real high pass filter at 70 hertz and doing a dip around 400. The hi-hat, I have the Renaissance EQ, again, just high passing. Looks like I have the decapitator on the Coles room mic. I don't remember doing that, but I'll go with my original Instinct. And I'm just giving a little bit of drive. And then the stereo room. Let's see what we're doing here. Okay. The stereo room, I'm taking out a little bit of low end, scooping out a little bit of 200 and boosting a little bit of, looks like 5K. It must have sounded right to me. Besides that, I have you see these auxiliary tracks here, right? I have that coming out of 15 and 16, and I have the SSL compressor on that doing very little gain reduction. And the Pro Q fab filter. And it looks like I'm doing a little bit of high pass and boosting some 100 and some 1K, and then got some low pass and high pass going on. The reverb you're hearing, I have an auxiliary setup right here, and that is the Valhalla. And that's the drums. And we're going to hear them soloed out now. Okay, so that's the drums. And I'm really hearing what the API summing mixer could do. And you're going to get all direct feeds of that. So let's go to the bass. This is a Scratch DI. And I got the Renaissance EQ, and I'm just high passing at 66 hertz. The Bomb Factory 1176, doing a little bit of compression there. And 550 API EQ. And what I'm doing is taking the 50 hertz, really boosting it a lot for low end, giving it a little bit of top at 7K, and I'm taking away this 6 right here. Or sorry, taking away 6 dB of 1.5. That sounds like this. Recorded with my bass guitar DI'd directly into a Neve 1066. I remember that. Now let's go to the guitars. The main rhythm guitars will just do. I also have a fuzz guitar and a clean guitar in there, but we're going to skip to the main rhythm left and right. And that is, I'm treating them both the same, both the same, the left and right. High pass with the Renaissance EQ, taking out some of that low mud from 116 down. And then the API 550 AEQ again, boosting some 3K, some 5K, and some 200. And that is both tracks the same that I'm doing. And that sounds like this. I have a clean guitar here, and the only thing I got going on there is the Siemens EQ, and then I have a fuzz guitar here, and this is real low in the mix, and I'm just doing some high pass. So if you see what I'm doing with most of my EQing in the box, is I'm doing more of a reduction EQ to get rid of mud, to scoop out stuff, and really just going with the microphones and the amps and the preamps. So I'm recording a guitar amp. I'm liking what I did with the microphone and the preamp, and with the plugins in the box, I'm basically just scooping out some frequencies that I don't want there. So we'll hear the clean, and then I'll engage the fuzz too underneath it. So here it is here. Okay, so there's not much to that, but it does fill in what I want to hear. This is the whole song all together, mixed on the API Summing Mixer with the plugins I just showed you, and going through the auxiliary device. Besides that, there's no outboard gear. The Allen Smart C2 and the X filter are on the mix bus. So let's hear the punch of this mix. Here we go. Let me show you how much. Let me turn this down. I don't know if I mentioned that with my API Summing Mixer in the box mix, that's what's going on right now. My console is off. I'm monitoring through my inward connection, DMS5, which is discrete monitor system. This is basically the master section of a console, but does a little more. It has a talkback, auxiliary select, where I could play, I have a send and return, stereo send and return on here that I could put into the mix, say SSL compressor or whatever, but I have nothing on that. Stereo playback, stereo playback, stereo playback. Then I have an external device to where I could play an iPhone or something through it. Then I have speaker select 1, 2, another speaker select or sub that engages both together, and then I can mono the mix. And then this is the master fader. So right now, I'm going to take everything out, put it how it was. I'm going to turn this down. And so there's the mix. I'm going to show you how much deduction I'm doing on my Alan Smart. I say that's about 3.5, peaking right under 4. I have the side chain filter engaged, so that means anything under at 150 hertz, it starts, it's high passed at 150 hertz. Because if I didn't do that, it would really be pumping the kick drum in the low end of the mix, and I don't want to do that. So as I am sloping down on that 150 hertz, high passing there, I am also got my X filter engaged, and I am boosting around 60. Got 1K, a little bit above 1K, and these are very small increments that I'm doing here. And then I have, for the high mid, I have, what is that, 3K almost. And then the high shelf, I have the high band, I have a little bit over 10K, maybe 11K boosting. And if you see how small the increments are, the low end I'm boosting more than anything else. And I have it engaged. The X filter is a really cool piece. It's very subtle. You don't want to do big sweeps on this, but it's perfect for just sweetening the mix. This is the in the box mix. I'm coming out of 1 and 2. I'm monitoring off my inward connection master section. There's no summing mixer. There's nothing. This is plugins. I set up a master fader right here that you could see, right there. And the only difference is that you're hearing in real time now that is going to help this mix is I have the Clariphonic and Ozone on the master fader, okay? And that's going to help this mix. So now we're going to hear direct feeds of the individual instruments, drums, bass, and the rhythm guitars in the box. So here they are. We'll start with the drums. And here's the bass. And now we'll do the rhythm guitars left and right. Here they go. Now we could do the clean guitar and fuzz. Okay, and now let's just do the full mix of in the box. There we go. I don't know about you, but I heard a major difference. The API summing mixer just adds that transformer oomph, that fluffy punch, that high-end greatness. And I'm not saying that you can't get an in-the-box mix just as good. I'm sure you can. But for me personally, when I'm going through a mixer, I hear what I want to hear faster. It gets me to where I want to be faster. So I don't really do in the box mixing much. Now, I'll do it if a band comes and they want to hear their raw tracks, but even then I'm usually printing it through either my console or the summing mixer. But I have no problem printing it in the box mix for a band to have a reference to hear what they recorded that day. And there's plenty of mixers out there that are mixing fully in the box and get it sounding awesome. That's just not me. I don't spend enough time with it because my ears hear what they want to hear going through the summing mixer or the console. Okay, so we just did the in the box mix. Before that, we did this API summing mixer mix, and now I'm going to prep everything and we're going to do the console mix. I'm not going to spend a lot of time dialing stuff in. I'm just going to patch in some compressors, get a good vibing mix going, and we're going to hear the difference. I'm going to solo out the drums, the bass, and the rhythm guitars like you just heard for the in the box mix and the summing mix. So let me get that started. Okay, so I dialed in some outboard gear and we're on the console mix now. I just did it pretty fast, just went with what I knew. I'm going to go over and show you all the outboard gear I use, and I want to explain something to you. There's a few different ways I can mix on my console, and I normally do it between two different ways depending on the sound I want. So there's the normal way, which I'm just going into the line amps and mixing down the board and remix, or I could patch into the fader input. And the fader input, what it does is it bypasses one of the transformers in the signal chain, so it makes it a little cleaner. I didn't do that for this mix, and I'm pushing this mix hard so you could hear the console cream and you could hear the size and the butter of it. So just so you know, that's how I'm running it. Let's go over the outboard gear and then we'll hear the direct feed sound samples. So what I'm doing is I have the in the box mix, no plugins except for I am using the Valhalla reverb, and I'm using an SPX 90 on the bass. So let's just go through it. So I got kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, tom, floor tom, overhead left and right, hats, mono, room, stereo overhead left and right, drum bus, and then my Valhalla verb. That's everything I had on the in the box mix and the summing mixer mix. But the difference is now every track is now going through multiple transformers. The kick is going through input and output transformers. The kick out, the snare, the top, the snare bottom, the tom, the floor tom, the overheads left. I just added multiple amplifier stages and tons of transformers and op amps to every single channel. Okay? So I got the mix spread across the console. On the mix bus of the console, just like the summing mixer, I have the Allen Smart C2 and the Elysia X filter. I didn't even touch that. I didn't adjust it for the mix. It's the same mix bus that you're hearing on the summing mixer mix. The in the box mix, that's not on there. It's completely in the box. Okay, so we'll go down the line. On the kick in, I have the DBX 160 VU. On the kick out, I have nothing. On the snare top, I have the 160 VU. On the snare bottom, I have nothing. Also for the kick in and the snare top, I have a pair of 550As that I'm adding a little bit of EQ to. There's nothing on the tom or the floor tom, nothing on the overheads, nothing on the hat, nothing on the mono room, nothing on the stereo overheads. Now, just like I created a drum mix with the API summing mixer and I put it through my line amps over there, I am created a drum mix on the console and I'm going through the API 2500 and returning that to channels 25 and 26. So that's it for drums. The DBX 160 VU and the API 550As on kick and snare, kick in and snare top. And then on the drum bus, I have the API 2500. That is everything on the drums. Besides, I have Valhalla reverb on the drums, returning to 27 and 28. The bass guitar, I'm doing something cool with the bass, and we're going to hear each thing individually on a direct feed. I have the bass coming to channel 13. This is the DI track you heard. on the insert of the console, all the compressors and EQs that I'm showing you, all the outboard is on the insert of the console. So it's what that means is the fader volume rides does not affect the compression, and that's huge. Okay, so for the bass guitar, I have an 1176 off-rev, beautiful audioscape, they sound great. And then I have the, again, audioscape EQPA. Beautiful combination for bass guitar. It's 1176, Pultec style EQ. It sounds fat and warm. We're going to hear it, but let me explain something else. Also, I'm doing something that has been done many times on rock records. I am using the SBX 90 up there. So I have on Echo 2, I have dialed in right there, and it's basically sending out to the SBX 90. I'm on patch 9, which is a stereo flange. That is coming back to channels 23 and 24, and I'm dialing in how much I want. Okay, you're going to hear that. So that is the bass guitar. Now, the guitar left and right, I'm trying to stay in the same order as I did with the summing mixers. I have coming through the channels 15 and 16, so it's hitting all those transformers in the console. And it's also going through the Chandler germaniums. I have it dialed in lightly, and if you look at the wet dry right here, let me grab my little chopstick. If you look at the wet and dry right here, I'm more towards dry. So that's like a parallel compression without having to use faders on the console. And that's why I love these compressors, and they just sound creamy. So this is on my rhythm guitars left and right. I also have these original 550s on my rhythm guitar left and right. And those are 550s, and I'm just got some 7K, 4 dB of 7K, 1.5 I got 4 dB of, and then 200. So that's it for that. I'm not using my 550Bs. I'm not using my Fatso, and I'm not using my DBX 162. Okay, so that's the rhythm guitars there. The clean guitar, I'm using the EQ on the console and this bottom distressor. The top distressor is not being used. What else do we got? That fuzz guitar, I have that going on 17 and 18. It's a mono track, but I have it spread across in the boxes coming out of 17 and 18. Hard pan left and right. And I'm using the EQ on the console. And I got those going through right here. If you see it, fuzz guitar. Hold on. Let me hold this right. Fuzz guitar and the DBX 160 XTs. Now besides that, the last thing that we're hearing on this mix is the percussion, which is a tambourine and shaker right there coming in 19 and 20. Again, hard pan left and right, about 90%. And that is going through the 160As right here. I have that on the insert of the console. So that's all the outboard gear. And now we're going to hear some direct feeds of it, of each track. Here's the bass guitar. You'll hear the flanging effect. Here we go. Now we're going to do the rhythm guitars. There's the rhythm guitar left and right. Now I could have gave them some size with a little splash of verb, which would have been easy for me to dial in, but this is just a rough so we could hear the differences between everything. And now we're going to hear that clean guitar and fuzz. So we'll start with the clean, and that is right here. And then I'll add the fuzz here. So here we go. So here's the whole mix on the console. So basically what I hear between the three, in the box mix, summing mixer, and the console. The in the box mix sounds thin, not as much beef, but I'm not very good at mixing in the box. The summing mixer mix sounds cleaner. You could hear the color of the API transformers, and it's cool to be able to have full recall like that, and it's convenient. So if I'm looking to do something convenient, like 1,000 recalls on a band, the API summing mixer, I have no problem mixing on that. The console, it's obvious that you're adding a bunch of beef. It sounds big, it sounds thick, it sounds full. It sounds very colored, it sounds dated. So if you're not looking for a dated colored sound, maybe you might want to go with the summing mixer over the console. But to me, the console just sounds more of everything that I like personally. It sounds like huge rock and roll to me personally. So that's sort of my summary of the three. Let me know what you think, and I know that in the box can be just as good as a summing mixer or mixing on the console. I personally am just not as good at it. So let me know what you think of the three, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I went through the outboard gear for you on the console mix. I went through the plugins on the summing mix, and the in the box mix was the same plugins and everything, just without the summing mixer. So that's the difference between the three. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you all. Have a good one.